Greetings and salutations, Focus Up family. Welcome to the April 5, 2025 installment of Mutant Politics with Student X. This show is all politics, global and domestic. We thank you for tuning in with us live Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. or at least basically when Spin That Back isn't on. And catching up with us on replay, or ask that you click that like, that subscribe, that bell, and share to support and maintain your weekly Focus Up fix. I am Mr. Nice Guy. Nice as in the word Saint spelled backwards, but the star of this show would be Student X. The opinions may be controversial, and you hear things that sound like praise of polarizing figures, but we're not endorsing anybody. Our politics are not party-based. We lean on policy here, and we stand on melanation. So with further ado, I'm passing this off to you, Brother Student X, and let me get this banner off the screen. Booyah. Welcome.
Ta-da! All right, y'all. Hey, good to be here as always, brother. Doing another show with you and just exploring, different political topics. Hey, here we are. Mutant Politics, man. We still rocking and rolling. I think we're gonna have, a lot more content to talk about. There might be, it might not be as frequent as we like, but every time we come, we want to come correct. And so there's not a better, more hot topic to discuss today than these Trump tariffs. A lot of people have lots of things to say. Some don't have anything to say, but let's talk about it. Hopefully we'll be joined, by our brother later on. He's been making the rounds on several different shows like Crumb TV. I'm talking about none other than our brother Yusuf, a.k.a. Black Jesus, a.k.a. the Trump Whisperer. So we'll see if he comes on today. And then, we had a conversation briefly yesterday where, I was like, bro, look, come correct, man. I got a lot of criticisms right now, and I do understand it's only 3 months in, but, I have some concerns, and I want to hear what you have to say about it, and I threw those concerns up out there, we'll talk about it on the show. But yeah, brother, tell me what's going on with you, and then and what you want to do with this topic.
Well, first, let's give a shout out to brother Mark Cram Carm the Sixth. Still watching and tapping in. But I see brother Yusuf is trying to come in. He's still having a little bit of trouble, brother. So keep trying. We're gonna get you in here. We can't wait to hear your takes. But I'm very enthusiastic to participate in this one. We don't have brother Afro Agnostics here, but just the fact that I'm hearing that there might be some go between brother Student X and brother Yusuf, boy, that's a fascinating thing to behold. So I'm definitely here for it. But let's see. I'm just waiting. I see the brother still trying to get in. When he gets in, I'm gonna bring him in. But that having been said, you want to get something started. You want to say something? You want to wait for the brother?
Yeah. Well, as a brother is dealing with those technicalities there, look, our conversation started with, and so I started with you too, is I was grading Trump, and I'm disappointed on some aspects, but absolutely ecstatic on others. Keep in mind, just for those that might be viewing, is I did not vote for Trump, although I made it perfectly clear that I was voting for a third party, to where I wasn't questioning him, having ties to Zionists at all, Trump, of course, I had my doubts, in regards to that particular, policy in particular. And so I went a different direction, but I did make it clear that, if I had to choose between one or the other, Kamala or Trump, it'd be Trump all day. So, hence is where, now I've been looked at as one who, wholeheartedly accepts everything on the Trump. No, that's not the case, and in this case right here, I'm giving Trump a D plus, maybe even an F when it comes to foreign policy. We're gonna talk about it. And as it relates to domestic policy, I'm gonna give him a C plus, namely because Doge is really saving them. I'm seeing some things that don't line up with what this Constitution states. And I'm not liking some of the things I see. So. But yeah, brother, you have any response to any of that so far?
I mean, again, we're not really out here in the endorsing thing. I'm not a Democrat. Just let me put that out there. But I'm definitely not a Republican, and definitely not MAGA. Definitely not a Trump supporter. Although, again, no one's all bad. There are things that he does, things that he says that I can actually get behind. There's even policy that he puts out there that, to me, at least on the face, seems logical. I think the theory of Dodge is respectable. I doubt the sincerity of it. I mean, it's just a concept of, would you trust Lex Luthor to be the person that decides, what's good or what's bad? It's that type of situation. So again, the theory of Dodge I can get behind. The actual application of Dodge and who's in control, that I question. The fact that he's successful, and I know you talked about that on the Focus Up show earlier today. Like I said to you before the show, being successful doesn't mean that you have morals. Doesn't even mean you have the best way to do something about it. It's just you've done something that's been successful. So that's just a little bit of conflict there. So, brother Yusef, if you're watching, I see that you're trying to get in. Just keep on trying, brother. Once I see you actually get in, I will bring you up. And that's for sure.
Okay. Well, so with that said, so when you say it's trying to get in, what there's like a connection issue?
That's what I'm going to speculate. I don't have that. What happens is when you basically tap into the link, we put that out there, and what I'll see as I got the producer view, I'll see the people sort of like as a pattern below, sort of like coming in. So whether it's his visual face, if he's going live with audio, I'll still see it. It'll be clear. But when it shows something like trying to connect or trying whatever, that's showing me that I could bring you up, but that's just you're not in. So
okay, so it might be a signal issue, where he's at. He doesn't have a strong enough signal, maybe.
That's probably what it is. He's probably having a bandwidth issue. And again, you can always, even though we respect your very handsome, charming figure, you know what I'm saying? If you can just tap in with the audio, that'd be sufficient, brother. Because we mostly want your dialogue. So don't limit yourself to not being able to just come in here visually. But if you can pull that off too, that's what's up. So I see him sign. It's just saying there we go. Oh, wait a second. He was trying. Let me just try to add you and see. You were starting to come in there. There we go, brother.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, sir.
I don't know why my camera's not coming on. I've been dealing with all these. I just got off of Zoom no more than a couple of minutes ago. I don't have no issues, but it seems like every time I get on this network, there's a problem.
It's a conspiracy, brother. A conspiracy. You know what I mean?
That's it. He just got dropped.
Yeah, just like that. Just like that. You know what I mean? So
I brought you right on back, brother Yusef. So welcome to the party, pal. That's what I always like to say when people come in. Shout out to Bruce Willis, one of my favorite actors. But anyways, so let's go ahead, set the table for us, Student X, so we can. Hey, brother Yusef, I'm very eager to hear your take on this stuff, and I'm very eager to hear Student X's counters.
I heard y'all had a lot of conversation about me. You know what I'm saying? Mentioned my name earlier. That's what I heard. And
that's right. We need to keep your name out of mother effing
my mother. You dig what I'm saying? Unless I'm present, because I don't know what you cats said about me, and I'm very defensive. You hear me?
Go ahead, student.
It was all good, bro. Everybody respects your brilliance and your contributions, no doubt about it. But so I had set the stage earlier saying that you and I had a conversation briefly yesterday, to where I was expressing a lot of concerns, even though we're 3 months in, in regards to how Trump is moving, how he's not moving, and I always say, and we've been saying, is that that you're like a Trump whisperer. You studied the man, you're studying his decision making, and then you seem to have a grasp in terms of what you believe he's thinking. You know what I mean? And oftentimes, these dots do connect, and you're saying things that are happening before they actually fully materialize, and we understand it to be so. So I want to say all that. But we got on a call, and one of the number one things that I was just disappointed in what I was seeing with Trump in regards to foreign policy, is one of the main reasons why I did not want to vote, a Democrat, of course it was numerous and many, but among them was the fact that, we knew that we were headed for a nuclear confrontation, and it felt like it was more imminent underneath that administration, than we ever have saw in a long, long time, based on how they were maneuvering with Ukraine and what they were prepared to do in that conflict. But now we transition into, Trump's regime now. And then, of course, he promised us from day one, this was going to be over. But as I explained to the family earlier, is that when Trump talks in these absolutes, those that support him take them as more of, okay, Absolutely. He's saying that this is a priority. This is going to be, something we're going to accomplish, and put on top of the list, in regards to that. No one really thought these things were going to happen overnight, But yet we see right now, that with the way Trump has, engaged not only Russia, which seems like, he doesn't even have like he's being misinformed, by those who are around him, or he's playing stupid. It can't be, he either knows or he don't know. At the end of the day, but the way he's approaching Russia and then Iran, is as if like, he thinks that we're in the world, that it was such when he was president at number 45, not 47, the whole game has changed, so what are your thoughts just in regards to, that particular issue?
So what I need to say first is this. It's all in the scriptures. When you start reading and actual understanding, that's what the story is. Everything that we are living out day to day is already scripted. We just got to have more clarity and understanding. They said there will be allies, and at the end, allies will betray other allies. That means that, hey, I'm going to pretend to be a friend, but all the time I'm a foe. That's how betrayal comes about. That's what the word betrayal really represents. My friend betrayed me. So when you're looking at deceptions, you can't bring down a kingdom directly in its face unless you are able to get up under his covers with him, and then you choke him out. But you can't let him know he's the enemy right away. We all know the enemy of this world is money, currency, and the control of it. Well, we have to understand the condition of the world is controlled by a certain entity that was controlling this world and the money, and look what we got. We got every abomination under the sun. In order to correct this wrong, we got to choke out that money source. But at the same time, we can't collapse and have the people starving. So we got to be strategic a little bit. The question is, are we going to be able to avert it, or do we go along with it? You mentioned just a second ago about nuclear armament and war. And you was correct. We was damn near there under Joe Biden. And you have to ask why it was not being looked at under that administration versus this administration heavily. When you have no submarines or nothing like that moving around. Yeah, my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Stop for a second. So I thought you
Yeah, somebody was calling in. So
we can hear you now.
So when you look at the whole situation by Trump stopping the battles that's taking place in the global community, he did sort of stop it with Ukraine by not giving them the finances and weapons. That's one way to stop it. And they continue. How they continue is because Great Britain, France, and everybody else now supplying them. That's how it's continuing. So he can't stop it in that sense. But what he did was, hey, we ain't got nothing to do with it. This is not us. This is them. So if it's be a white on white crime, let it be white on white crime. We ain't got nothing to do with it.
You know what? So okay. I think you touched it. I think that, based on what Brother Youssef did, I mean, that sounds like he did. I mean, he kind of did his job after a fashion. I mean, really, the appeal of Trump, the appeal of Trump over, the Democrats was that, he wasn't going to basically just supply Ukraine just on ever. The bottom line is there was going to be some pressure on Ukraine to stop, because they were never going to get the support that they got the Democrats from Trump. So
Correct.
in that regard, I mean, it seemed like he's kind of, put it this way, he's delivering at least to the extent that we're not a part of it. To the extent that whatever, if there was some type of situation, he's after a fashion kind of washed our hands of it. And he's definitely, he's definitely capitulating. So I'm just saying that there's no question. You guys said the threat of it. I always said that the threat is theoretical, but definitely the threat was magnified with the Democrats. It's definitely been diminished with Trump. That, to me, that's a reality. If you want to talk about the stuff that's going on with, Iran, you want to talk about Israel, those are legitimate, gripes, because he was always going to be a greater friend of Israel than the Democrats were going to be.
Well, you got to be a greater friend of Israel at this time, because Israel is connected to the power source. They straight plugged in. This was going back before the Balfour Act was created. And Israel is nothing but another strategic military base, pretty much, with a huge base for the European Zionist organization. And that was set up by Britain, not set up by America. America was nothing but the defense. We got to look at it like this. You got a kingdom. The money source comes from Great Britain. That's where all the money. The Federal Reserve that's controlling the side of America belongs to them. Those families, those bloodlines. The piece of the board also belongs to them, which is called the Vatican. They go around baptizing the citizens of the world to make sure they're up under their religious control. So America had the military might for this regime. This is the reason why Britain had to build up a military no more. Because, hey, that's ours. That belongs to us. Speaking of America. But you get Trump in and say, no, this belongs to us. So no longer we want your currency controlling our America empire or our peoples. We don't want none of it. We don't want none of your transgenderism. We don't want none of your homosexuality. We don't want none of it. We want to do the will of the Most High. People might not see that in Trump, but I see it. And he might not even understand what he's doing, but the God is working through him, in my opinion. So what we got to see is the whole thing about, this is the reason why I tell my brothers, read The Art of War. That was Trump's book, number one book that he constantly read. And when you read his personal book, and when you read his personal book, The Art of the Deal, and when he had to have his main battles with Jews in Manhattan when he went and tried to build his infrastructures, right? His buildings and whatnot. He said they didn't like me because of my skin tone and my hair color. So he automatically know who's who, but he understood the power of the individuals. These same individuals, they got a problem with us as a people. They got a problem with European as a people. They want to control every inch of this earth as it is written about them. And what Trump is trying to do is overthrow them. And what we have to do is see the mission why Trump is in the position he's in, because he got to overthrow them off of us, the true chosen. It's all in the book. We might not understand that. We might not want to, but it's in the book. It's written.
Hey, brother, Big Cuz makes a big point for me. America is Israel's power source. It's not vice versa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For sure. It's one of those situations of, who is the tail wagging the dog or is the dog wagging the tail? But yeah, we know that in terms of economic strength, the support, Israel will collapse if the America stopped funding and supporting her, overnight. But
that can go swing two ways, right? Like I said, if America is the might as far as military, Israel got to play its part, because otherwise America attack Israel, she's done overnight, right? So she knows the power is in the money, but the might is in the weapons. See what I'm saying? So if Israel attack America in any kind of economic way, you can hit them with the weapons. So both of them got to play each other carefully in this game of chess, right?
I mean, they're
so
allies,
Trump can't
though.
go
Why would they
after
attack
them.
each other?
Huh?
I said they're allies. Why would they attack each other?
Well, the allies, that goes back to the scriptures too. Allies will become foes.
I understand
So,
that, but I mean, again, when you bring in the
be- be-
scriptures, and I'm not going to be one to ever dispute scriptures because
because
I'm a
we're not,
believer.
because, okay, so that belief thing that you spoke of just now, right?
But my
We,
point is
we
that
don't
I don't
we don't
necessarily
have the
believe
same.
that's playing out. I'm saying I don't necessarily believe that's playing out right now, though. That's all I want to
Oh
say. I
yes,
want to get
sir.
out your
Oh
way.
yes, sir. It's a belief system. Listen, in the Holy Land, which you would call holy, and it said this is God's throne. This is where He's sitting in the whole nine, right? Allegedly, right? I'm just saying hypothetically and allegedly, because it's for those who that don't understand. You would not have a transgender homosexual gay parade on the ground, allegedly, that the Most High or His Son walked upon. That you call in the Holy Land. That's defying the land that the most powerful man that walked on this earth. You define that land. So me personally, if I was over in Israel, that would never happen because I have respect for the Most High. So only person would do that would be the synagogue of Satan. So do we follow the path of them, continue down this road, or do we overthrow them? And if they are the money source, how do we strategically overthrow them? Because everything that we do involves in their currency. And those who back Israel has the currency because they are part of the Zionist organization. This ain't gonna do with all Jews. I'm not throwing all Jews
I'm
in there.
glad you said that. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
important to say.
I think it goes without saying. We.
It
Let
needs
me
to be
say this:
said.
is that first of all,
It needs to be
everyone
said.
knows that the creation of Israel were some European Jews from Eastern, Europe, white people,
Khazarians.
who claim the religion of the prophets, of a wonderful religion, being Judaism, claimed the religion and had a moral justification that was backed by Britain and others and allowed them to now plant themselves in the middle of where there was peace and where people were living, now who were then put, into internment camps, and watching strangers now living in their homes and eating their fruit from the trees that they have been tended to for thousands of years. This is the
And,
creation of
and,
it.
and what
The
and
foundation
what
of
do the, and what do the Bible say about the supplanter? You feel what I'm saying? Read about the supplanter. You just mentioned the word. Read about him and what his mission was. When we look at this whole thing as a people, you have Afro Philippines, you have Afro Panamanians, you have Afro Chinese, you have Afro everywhere. We were the main structure of this earth. And then once when these peoples came out of the Caucasus Mountains, then that's when the whole mixture thing came about. The Mexicans, the mulattoes, and all these different things, right? When you understand the history and the structure of this thing, you'll understand their mission was to wipe us off of this earth. Through call it what they call it, colony, colony. How you say that word?
calling.
Calling, yeah. And they got us believing that, hey, one drop of black blood, you pretty much black. You know what I'm saying? And we take that and we run with it. Oh, he's black. He's black. No, bro. Give another generation two and they mix with one another, they'd be all white. You won't be able to identify them. You'll identify them through DNA, as far as a physical structure, because that's what they got this thing ran on, black law. So this thing is structured on black versus white. And their whole thing is to get the majority of them to rule over the rulers of this earth. We gave up our rights. We really didn't give up our rights. They fought for it. But under these laws and these maritime laws, they got us jacked up. One thing I discovered last night, speaking to the Most High, my father, right? People are speaking about where is the slave ship? Where are the slave ships? Why we never seen no slave ship? Then it dawned on me, wait, nigga, this is what God's speaking to me. He said, well, maritime law is what you guys under. What about thinking like this? What if the black woman was actually the slave ship? Then I thought about it, then I went to research about ships in Europe in their language and the linguistics. The linguistics says that all ships are considered as a female. I said, oh, we found the ships under maritime law. It never was no ships. They made us believe that there were ships under maritime law, but the ships has always been here in the United States. They just took over our land and gave us ideologies and indoctrinations and using maritime law to do it. So I'm saying that this is how they colonize. This is how they mislead us in order to overthrow God's true chosen.
So I mean, you said a lot, bro. You know what I mean? And the last part, that I heard in general, is, I know there's been this debate in terms of, where we kidnapped from Africa, brought over here, made slaves, type of situation, and if did it happen the way that they say it happens, and then you have a group of people now that's coming to understanding that, wait a minute, the real deception here is that you've been here all along and that this land is really, really yours, and they got you thinking that somewhere else is where you're from. You know what I mean? Is what there's a growing, influence, you know what I mean? And so what you share, I can see how there's some dots, connects there, but we'll say that for another time. Let's get back on to, another part of your dialogue, which you seem to go right into the topic, which is these tariffs. You know what I mean? There are many people, bro, I'm saying, like many people who I know voted for Trump, supported Trump, have been part of Trump's administration, in respect to a lot of the decisions he is making, and they're not happy with these tariffs at all. You know what I mean? Now, real quick, what I would share is that what it looks like to me is that, is that Trump is absolutely, this is just my theory, Trump looks like he's absolutely trying to kill this current world order and this current system of business, this current economy, and ultimately, have it be replaced with something else, which I believe will be, involving cryptocurrency, ultimately digital IDs. Now, granted, a lot of his buddies and a lot of his people are going to win, but the real question is, will the middle class will win? And let me tell you what his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, said on Trump's tariff plans in regards to, how it would impact the middle class. He said that the top 10% of Americans own 88% of the equities and 88% of the stock market. So let's stop right there. 10% of America own damn near 90% of the stock market and equities. You got to
throw in the 40% of international money, corporations that controls a portion of that, big portion of that, as a matter of fact.
Sure. And look, housing, I'm sure we could go on and on, without doubt. The other thing he said was that the next 40%, so now we got 10%. Now we're talking about the next 40%. They own only 12% of the stock market. And then the bottom 50%, is embedded in debt, credit card bills. They rent their homes. They have auto loans. And then he says that we got to give them some relief, and that this strategy that they're launching is indeed going to accomplish that. What say you, and what are you seeing here?
So what I see is this with the tariff situation. We look at the condition of the United States. We look at how everything is going up. We're looking at the value of products that we're receiving from overseas. We were receiving a whole bunch of junk and a whole bunch of stuff that's filled in landfills, right? We all know when we used to buy American, we were concerned about the quality, the material. We can go in some thrift stores right now and see some of the things that were made back in the 60s or 70s, and you can plug it up and it still works. So what we doing, what the terrorists have done in reverse was destroy America from within and built other nations outside. Now they're challenging America's power along with the currency. Power and the might is their military is strong now. The currency situation they was putting together for global trading, excluding America out of this global trading with the BRICS situation. So America really only had two options: either go to war, deal with the problem inside, or just total collapse and have chaos within inside itself and let it implode. So Trump had to look at this thing in multiple fashions. How do he get the problem out? So when I come in, I'm going to have all these executive orders ready. First, I got to get the morale back in the people, the moral values back. Nuclear families. Let's write legislation about that. Get these transgenders off the TV and all that, putting this bad influence in the children. Let me write something on that. Let's write something based on the currency situation. We see China and everybody else rises up against us. If you hurt our currency, Mr. China, man, you're going to destroy us. Well, listen here, you got to do this, that, and the other. Okay, we're going to go in and check out this corruption that's going on in our country because our debt is exploded $37 trillion. We're bringing in $5 trillion and spending $7 trillion a year. So it's going to keep exploding. Trump said, well, what I got to do now, find out what this corruption is. Come on in, Elon. The media do this. Setting up war on the inside. Hey, George is taking your money. Your social security number being stolen. And we know when we all fill out an application, we put social security numbers on everything. So we have enemy planters with inside that want to see this place to fall because we cannot, what you just spoke about, Brother Charles, about the middle class and how everything is being destroyed. That wasn't on Donald Trump's watch. That was on multiple presidents. Coming through these changes since we go back to George Bush 1 or Ronald Reagan 1. When we look at this capitalist system, what they did with Bill Clinton was open up outsourcing. I'm able to take my company from out of the United States of America, put it into another country, but I still have legal rights as a corporation in America. But I'm taking my company out here and get this slave labor competing with America's employers' wages. Now I'm able to take this company, make buku money, bring it back into America and sell it for a crazy price and then no taxes on it. So Trump telling them, listen, I don't care if you're an American company or not. Anything that's outside of this perimeter of this United States of America, we're going to put heavy taxes on it. So if I advise you to bring it back, why? Because the citizens are suffering. The pharmaceuticals are getting huge because of stress, because of anxiety. Don't know if you're going to pay your bills or not. And then you got all these entities that's coming here and just trying to destroy from within, from with the food. Corporations want to take over farmers' properties and give them stipends and whatnot, and say you can only grow so much and take so much. We bring in food and import when we got food here. Then you got what does it say in the scriptures?
Hey, Brother Yusef,
go ahead.
I feel like you're giving Trump a whole lot more credit than he probably deserves. I don't, but I'll say this: you got to understand when you talk
Trump
about.
Don't know.
Well,
I'm not giving him credit.
Okay, got you. You just say okay.
I'm watching the moves. Like, have you played chess before?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
When you're chess, when you playing chess with your opponent, everything is quiet at the table. You just watch a movement. You got to figure out the movements yourself.
Gotcha.
So when you're watching each other play exactly. So when you're watching each how they moving, I'm drawing my own conclusion. And based on the script, how chess is supposed to be played. What is the script? The Bible.
I got you.
Okay. So now we're marking time here. You feel me?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but what I wanted to address was the whole outsourcing and this dynamic, what's going on there. Because you got to understand, you talk about slave labor in another country, and sometimes it's not so much. Sometimes it's not so much about slave labor in another country as much as cost of living in another country. Because in Vietnam, you know what I'm saying. I have a person that I work with who's physically in Vietnam but works for the law firm that I work for, and his cost of living is completely different from the cost of living here. So they may not be getting the type of wages that we get, but the money that they get, what they're able to do with their money, it stretches further. It's just like when Elon says, I want to go out of California to go to Texas because it's just the cost of living there, the regulations and all these dynamics. So I'm just saying that just because you go to something that financially makes sense, it's not necessarily a function of exploiting slave labor as it might be exploiting this lower cost of living type of dynamics. So when you and those costs pass on to us, because the notion of bringing everything here and doing everything here will drive prices way up and not necessarily drive our income up. And
right.
when
So,
that happens,
real quick before we go back to Yusuf, before you address that, I just want to also like kind of set the stage right there, you know, because I see exactly, you know, the points that that Mr. Nice was bringing up is that, yeah, you're right. Oftentimes it's not, you know, slave labor per se, you know, but the one thing that you have to admit, and I think you were actually helping to prove Yusuf's point, honestly, is that, you know, Trump does recognize, as most of the wise, when we really look at economics, that it's not that things are costing so much more. It's just the value continues to lose value because we keep printing out a damn nothing, and there's nothing backing it outside of the threat of war and the power that it has yielded. You know what I mean? So it looks like that Trump, you know, sees, you know, that system and see it not worthy of being of continuing. You know what I mean? Now, I think it's a debate whether what he wants to replace it with is going to benefit him and his friends, and indeed, is it going to benefit the middle class? Because I see a couple things, and then I want to see what Yusuf says. Is that before I bring up that point, I want to bring up, you know, the art of war. You know that, you know, brother's been bringing up the Bible, but he also brought up the art of war, and the first chapter, if you will, when dealing in the art of war, it is called laying plans. You know, not going to battle, you know what I mean? You know, waging war, that's number 2. You know what I mean? But before you wage the war is laying plans. And then we got to admit that, you know, he's only 3 months into his administration. He does seem to be setting the stage for something. You know what I mean? Now going back, you know, to, you know, this, you know, these tariffs and this dollar, you know, falling, you know, at a rapid rate. You know, is again, you know, I do understand that this does seem to be a system that is not worthy of being, you know, to continue. But then back to that slave labor is that what I see is that, you know, the middle class, I think workers and those with trades, I think that they're going to get a lift up, you know, in particular, because AI can't replace them. But the reason why there's such an emphasis on AI is because in order for America, especially these manufacturing companies, because my first question was like, damn, how the hell are you going to replace, you know, someone in China who makes $15,000 to $20,000 working inside these factories, when here in America you're gonna have to pay them anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000. You know what I mean? They be working in these same factories. How are you gonna be able to compete with that? Well, AI is the answer. You know, so they're going to compete with China and these others by now deploying AI technology, which is going to put some of that class of workers out of business, as well as others, you know, in the near future. But in the meantime, you know, again, those with trades, you know, those, you know, in the middle class right now who often don't get paid their value, they're seemingly going to become more valuable inside of a economy like that, you know, and they make up a lot of the middle of America, you know. So I just want to kind of throw that out there, and then now let Yusuf go ahead and respond, you know, to some of what you shared.
And before you respond, Yusuf, I want to say the model that you just described, Student X, doesn't necessarily employ more people here. But go ahead, Brother Yusuf.
It was so much there, and there was some of it that I had lost. Right, my phone had connection or something. Right. Yeah. So let me see if I can remember some of this. What you were saying, what you was asking. So it was about. Go ahead.
You can give him a succinct exact thing that you want him to address.
Yeah. So I mean, well, we've been on the topic of terrorists, and like I said, I brought up the fact that, you know, Trump, you know, Art of War, you know, you've been bringing up that book, you've been bringing up the Bible, how there's a script, you know, I mean, that ultimately is being followed, and that, you know, ultimately, you know, Trump and these terrorists, you see them as being a benefit for America, you know, and that he's fulfilling his promise, you know, in terms of ultimately, you know, setting the stage to help, you know, Americans, you know, lower the prices of some of these goods and services from abroad.
Well, we have to understand what Trump has always said from the beginning was this: every nation has the right to their own sovereignty. He's been saying that at the UN. He's been saying that in the press here in the United States, all over the world. You have a right. No man has no right, or no other nation has a right to control you and your people. What's in your land? What's going on in your land? They have no right. So when you have a man speaking like that, he's for humanity. Trump always has also said that America don't need to have military bases all over the world. That's in control. So why are they there? For corporations. So what Trump is basically saying
Trump
about
said that.
corporations?
Wait, you saying Trump said that? Because
Ye-
you think
Yes,
Trump
yes,
doesn't
yes.
think we don't have one of military bases? I mean, I don't know.
He
Maybe
said
you
we,
still
he
that
said
know
we
that.
shouldn't. He said we shouldn't. He
Okay,
said we
gotcha.
shouldn't. We shouldn't be governing nobody's nation, overthrowing anybody's nation. You can go look this up. He said it out
Well,
his own mouth.
overthrowing somebody's nation, that's not a hard thing for me to grasp. I was just surprised that you said that he didn't think that we should have military bases in other
Yes,
places
he
because
said that. He said that as
I
well.
thought that
He said
Greenland
that.
was a strategic thing, you know,
What,
like
what,
that.
what, what Greenland, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion.
Mhm.
We have a lot of things going on with the 13 bloodlines of this world, right? They control many entities. You remember the story of the father of the bankers. What's his name? Mm, the Baron. They become the Rothschilds. What he said, I will send 5 my sons throughout the world and setting up the banking institutions for control. These families have family members controlling every part aspect of governments around the globe, especially here in the United States. So when I looked at Trump when he was talking about Greenland, and I seen Donald Trump Jr. headed to Greenland the day after his father won, you haven't heard Donald Trump Jr. in the media at all. So I went and did some research and see what's going on. All this talk of Greenland, but he's still there. For what? Then I'm seeing that generals are going over there, military's going over there in Greenland. I said, what is they plan on setting up? Then it just dawned on me in the scriptures. They all would be housed. They all would be housed for military tribunals. So then now this is just my opinion. There will be gate cut off. That means they won't be able to travel the seas and no boats or nothing will be able to come in. Then also I'm putting together, I said, Trump saying, man, I need more speed from the Homeland Security of going after immigrants. I need more a day. We look at it as this nigga going crazy, arrogance. But if you're willing to make a mass arrest of criminal activities going on across the United States of America, you got to be effective. So this is just practice. For what? For a greater day, as the Lord said.
Hey,
So
and look,
Trump,
I tell you what, I sure hope that's what's happening. You know what I mean? But like in terms of what I
this is
understand
what the
about
book is
Greenland,
saying.
yeah,
Let me tell you something. This is what the book is saying. This
yeah,
is what the
I
book is
understand what you're
saying, Brother
saying. You
Trump.
know, and you know, I can see how in that context, it could be explained. But Greenland in particular, what I'm seeing, is that when you look at this manufacturing, they're talking real big in terms of bringing manufacturing back in America.
Let me
Period.
tell you
Like I
something.
said, we just talked
You
about.
can't do nothing in the United States of America until you get rid of the corrupted entities inside of America.
Agree. Totally agree.
America
But
would
the other thing
never
is, I
have
mean,
peace. Trump would do 4 years and out. We'd be back to business as usual. If you see
no
what he's
doubt.
setting up, he's giving back the constitutions. He's overriding these low court systems that charging the citizens fees and fines, violating the Constitution based on our ignorance of the law. So he's going after all of these situations. We got to see it from another perspective. Those in control is going to hate a man that's coming in the robe like Christ. I've come to cause disruption of the merchants. What happened to the stock market? I'm causing disruptions in the merchant. What's going on with these laws? I'm calling disruptions in the judicial systems. What's going on with the media and press that control the masses of the people? I'm calling it fake. We got to look at it from another perspective for us to go free. Because otherwise, if you have children and grandchildren, it's going to be worse for them. We got to go through this little suffering for a greater cause. Trump understands that. He don't want to be in no place in
No,
this world which he could already be with his billions of dollars and going to the sunsets.
I'm gonna
because
go
he's
back to this
already 8
big
years
cuz
old.
comment. I'm gonna go back to this big cuz. I'm gonna go back to this big cuz comment. He said a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck and don't have time to wait and see how this plays out. I mean, I hear what you're saying. You're
We've been
thinking
doing
about a
that.
bigger picture.
You're right.
We've been doing that.
You're not doing nothing else.
Yeah, hey, but we've been doing that 50. Listen, the reason why you paying 40% of your sweat equity to an institution that don't give you no representation. They stealing it all. With 37%.
What institution?
I get to today in a second. I get to the day in a second.
Oh no, I'm
When
talking about people that Student X answered all you need to do.
We just abroad the shadow government, in particular, in the government, in general.
Yeah. So the bottom
when
line
you look
is,
at our education system based on the global community, right? Look at our education system based on the global community. What do you think we place in reading, writing, and arithmetic? You understand?
Terrible.
With 37 trillion, we should have the most brilliant students in the world.
Right. No doubt.
Education system should be number one.
We've been getting robbed blind, and those just showing that and proving that.
And you're pouring money into a system that they stealing the money out of. They're stealing the money out of the housing systems. They're stealing money from every entity because there is no oversight.
They're taking money out of real projects that are doing real things on the ground floor. I'm just saying that you can sit here and say that, but I'm just saying I actually know this for a fact because my wife works with a lot of these things. So I'm just saying that when funding gets removed, that on the basis of this, because they're like saying, like literally, you talked about how Doge goes, oh, all these jobs are unnecessary. We're gonna cut all these jobs. And then they find out, oh crap, these jobs are needed. So we're gonna put them back and pay them back pay. But guess what? During the course of that time, they weren't working. That's not efficient. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of stuff that they've been finding. There's a lot of stuff. I'm gonna give you a perfect example.
Hold on. What about when COVID took place? Did we have the same energy when COVID took place when people said I refuse to take this shot and I will lose my job and everything? What did they say then? What did they say to the people?
I supported the policy. You're talking about in
I saw you did.
This April 5, 2025. I supported.
And I still ain't had COVID. And I still ain't had COVID. But I still ain't had
that's
COVID.
Good for you,
but you can lose your job, but you can lose your job. And they got it because they got
somewhere else. Then you can just work somewhere else. People lost their jobs. People lost their jobs in the federal government.
When they shut down the whole financial system, people couldn't go to work.
The people were able to work remotely. I was able to work remotely.
Yeah. You keep saying I.
Because that's the reality. I'm telling you. Because
that's your reality. I'm a humanitarian. Listen, I'm a humanitarian. I look at us as a whole, not I. So when I look at myself, I don't look at myself as being on this earth by myself. I got little children, grandchildren following behind me. What do I want to leave behind?
We made it through COVID pretty well. We made it through COVID pretty well.
Let me chime in. Real quick,
soon as you got in the office, there's no more masks. The most dangerous disease virus that ever hit the planet, but there is no boxes over, no corners to say throw your masks here because it got this virus on it. It's going to kill millions of people. Come on, man.
COVID was some BS, but
it wasn't no BS because we had reached the immunity. We reached herd immunity.
That's what you say. That's what they say.
That's what the science says. That's what the science says. The
scientists is on investigation right now from the global community, not just from the United States. The sciences. That's why everything's been taken from them.
And the global community embraced these concepts. The global scientists.
The global community did embrace the whole COVID thing because the whole world got shut down, you know what I mean? And that, again, globalism, that's why a lot of people on the right.
Brazil and many other nations did shut down their economy because of it. Many.
But I want to go back to Yusuf's earlier point. And brother made a strong point earlier, and that is a lot of this funding and information, that we've been receiving in terms of, we're seeing how much money is going into a system, yet the results are not aligning with the investment. Is when I worked inside the nonprofit arena, which is where a lot of my initial earlier clients, came from, is I constantly saw this to where I work with a lot of grassroots organizations, and then they will always be attached, and then they always have to attach to another larger body that was receiving the resources from the federal government and then delegating those resources out while getting paid themselves, and they never look like us, you know what I mean? And then what we found was that even with less resources, these nonprofit organizations was getting greater results and having a bigger impact for the community, than these other, if you go betweens, if you will, gatekeepers that control these assets. That was pulling money essentially off the top when they weren't doing any of the work. They was essentially just managing the money. You know what I mean? And so this is an example where if you just look at how services that come to us, how things were getting siphoned off the top, hence us not getting the results that we would need to see, because the challenges we see within our communities today are just as great, if not worse, than what they were in the past. We're at the bottom of all the educational statistics, as well as we look at the country as a whole, we're performing very, very poorly. Now, if you're within that 10%, who can afford to send their children to a higher level of education, then, they have better results, and they're being taught the things that, will enable them to, change their reality, if you will, or maintain their reality. But again, the resources that have been coming to the American people, they seem to be like when a parasite is inside of you, you might be eating all this food, but the parasite keeps suctioning it off that which you eat. You know what I mean? So it's getting fat, it's getting strong all the while you're, being malnutrition, and ultimately die. And that's what these organizations have been doing to America, have been doing to our communities, is they've been peeling off the top. They have been destroying this community. And for whatever reason, whether Trump is doing it for out of the goodness of his heart and to save the people, or he's doing it ultimately because it's a play for him to get rich, nonetheless, we're benefiting from many of these moves. Again, the only argument is it directly that he's doing this for us, or is it just a byproduct that those his enemies are our enemies too right now, and then they're in the crosshairs, and so we get the benefit from that situation with them being eliminated, since we have not been able to eliminate them ourselves.
We talk about nonprofits. We got to look at a cause and effect. With they say that you're able to judge the fruit by the tree, right? And if we look at how our government, and we talking about all these nonprofits, we talking about all everybody's on drugs, we look at all this, that means the head is dead. There's nobody there. $36.7 trillion. We still need to look at that. Well, we have proper education. We used to have mental institutions for those who need the mental help. Now we got mental people that got mental problems. They now running your government. They are now in your military being generals. They are now producing mad TV on your television set. Mental patients that we want to say they have a right. When a man has a confused mind, he was produced confused seeds. You look at Donald Trump's tree. You look at his children. None of them on drugs. None of them alcoholic. Not even Donald Trump. You never seen a bottle, glass, or nothing of alcohol to his mouth. Never smoked. Totally against it. If you say you read his book, he said he's against it, and the reason why he was against it. But you look at this government and what all we offered it from slavery until now, it's all going to be lost if we don't be careful. And if we stop, we are looking at an ally and calling it an enemy because of our own ignorance. We want a pig will lay in the filth because he don't know what he's laying in. So we all become like the pig. We see all this, but we're comfortable in it. Me, I see it. I want to change it. And so I look for the allies to bring these changes. Don't care what it look like, white, black, Mexican, whoever. Let's make the changes, the correct changes back to what was right. Back in the 60s, it was a shame for a woman to have a baby out of wedlock. We all done it. I've done it. You understand what I'm saying? I'm guilty of it. But do I sit up there and say, hell with it because I did it? It should be okay? No, I'm not like that. My sins is my sins. I don't want my sins to fall on everybody else. I want a correction. We all should want that correction. Whatever we have done in life that is bad and has destroyed others or destroyed nations. And I see Donald Trump trying to help rather than destroy. Now, on the Middle East situation, you got the money structure, Brother Charles, that's backing that nation called Israel. That same money structure right now is still controlling America and still got power. And his name is called Jerome Powell and what's the Secretary of State? Yellen. What's her name? Yellen? No, not Secretary of Treasury. What's her name? Anybody help me?
The Secretary
Yellen?
of Treasury?
Yeah, what's her first name? Yeah, her name is Yellen. I'm trying to think of her first name. But you have
suffice it to say.
For who? Who are you talking about? For the
Secretary of Treasury, the chair.
That's all you need. That's all you need. That person,
Yeah.
whoever that is.
So, and you look at they're all from the same ethnic group. They're all from the same ethnic group. They control this thing. Only way you're going to be able to deliver yourself, you got to get them up under grips and say no more control. So you got to slide something else in while actually acting like you're a friend. Otherwise, they can chop your head off. The whole if they collapse this thing on us all right now today, with this mind state of the microwave oven, what we call the microwave oven generation, we don't have a chance because they're gonna want everything right now. Chaos will reign. Go ahead.
Hey, brother students. See, so I would say this. I'm not going to disagree with both of you. I think that both of you are correct as far as we understand that there's corruption in the machine. The machine is not necessarily efficient. We understand that there's all these problems with the government. You're not going to get no dispute from me, but this is my problem. You know, don't let. There's a saying that's something to the effect of, "Don't let the pursuit of perfection be the enemy of good." And the premise is that you got to understand that this machine, as flawed as it is, what will be the better outcome? Addressing the flaws of the machine or just completely tearing it down and building it back up? When you're talking about something as big as the nation, if you were talking about a house, you know, of course, tearing down a house is one thing, but tearing down a nation is a completely different thing. Again, me and you may believe in the same book. We don't necessarily believe in the same timeline. So I don't try to limit myself to that. I'm still going to try to salvage this timeline, this right now, because it's my understanding that I need to occupy myself.
We're trying to salvage it for all.
The coming. So I'm just saying that you know, the fact that the government.
Do you know what it says in the book about the coming? You said until the coming. Do you know that it says construction is come first before the coming?
Yeah, I know, but it also says occupy yourself until then.
So that's what. So you saying you want to do this before the coming? Destruction got to come first, baby.
I'm trying to say, yeah, but I'm not trying to get to destruction. Destruction can be for a whole nother generation. That don't
That's
need to be.
We're headed.
We can push this back. We can push this back many generations by getting our shit together. America does not have to wait. Humanity does not have to wait for the second coming to make things a whole lot better than they are. That's what I'm. That's
what Trump is trying to do. Avert it. That's what the aversion is.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
We had submarines. We had submarines of Russia sitting right there off of 40 miles off of Florida coast.
I agree 100%. I agree 100% that Trump decreases the chance of nuclear war. You guys have made that argument, and I've capitulated that argument. So I think that we don't need to keep having that argument. I agree with you guys.
So let me ask you this, Let me ask you this. So the thing is that I think that Yusuf has done an excellent job, in terms of showing you that Trump is absolutely, going against seemingly everything and everybody inside of this institution that we call the United States of America. And as far as I've known, for the 51 years damn near I've been on the planet, is that to this day the majority and masses of so-called black people are still very dissatisfied with the current state of affairs, no matter who's in power. I don't understand, why is it that we would want to see this continue to stand, and we don't believe it would ever give us a justice. If it would ever give us what that many among us feel that we deserve, at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I don't understand, and so now there's someone who, for the first time in a long time, and in a major way, is disrupting it all. You know what I mean? Including some of these agencies that historically have been very wicked, to, our ancestors. You know what I mean? And that's, so, so it helped me to understand.
A podcast.
Oh.
You talk?
Do you think you're going to get justice, Student X?
You said, do I think I'm going to get justice?
Because it seems like you're placing weight and value on justice because you want it, but I'm just saying that. Do you actually believe
in fact, I'm putting weight on change, because wasn't it Obama who ran under change that we could believe in? When Obama got that Peace Prize, everyone thought that now that America had a so-called black man in position of power, and then this individual, knowing all the injustices that are taking place, and not only here to his people, but throughout the whole world, that he was going to be just, and then bring in a new type of order and a new type of reality and position from the United States of America. But instead, they got the same, which was, bailing out the bank systems and whatnot, attacking. I mean, we could go on and on. They did not get what they thought that they were going to find. And so now the only person, that we've seen, in a long time since JFK, who was trying to make some disruptions himself. In fact, some speculate the reason why he ultimately was killed is that he was going to deny Israel access to a nuclear weapon. And that was the real reason why that he got killed, based on a lot of these release of these documents. We see Israel completely, I wasn't necessarily involved, but absolutely influencing, had influence, and all over that.
We're getting this information based on the transparency of Donald Trump's administration.
Exactly.
The people, the citizens of the United States deserve to know what's going on within their government.
And you're presuming that you're knowing. I'm just supplementing what you're saying. I'm not over talking you to stop you. I'm letting you keep going, but I'm just saying that you're presuming that it's transparent. And you're presuming that is that what's getting to us is actually what it is. And I'm not saying you may be right. But that's what
the files read when he opened the files and let everybody into the vault.
That's what the files.
We're not the only one analyzing this. There are experts throughout the whole world looking at these files. Now, some of them,
you got to remember, they wrote people profit off of this lie through books, movies, and the whole nine. They profit off the lie, and they knew it was a lie.
But again, you're talking. You may have experts. You say experts, but these are experts evaluating information. I'm questioning the information that they're evaluating. But I'm just saying it. But they may very well be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just qualifying these things because again, I think that you're giving him a lot more credit than maybe he deserves. But I do respect that both of you are saying that. Look, he may not even know exactly all this stuff, but if our interests are aligned, that's the most important thing. I'm just gonna. While we have that discussion, but I'm just saying that if the bottom line is he's yielding something that's beneficial to us, I really don't care why he was doing it. You know what I'm saying? So I like that you guys are going there. But I mean, to me, honestly, before you even go there, Mr. Student X, what blows my mind is that you guys seem to be so occupied and concerned about government spending and what the government's doing. When me and Mr. Afro Agnostics make all these arguments about, money should be going into this, money should be going to that, the argument we seem to keep getting back is do it for yourself. Take care of your own self. Don't worry about them. And to me, that's my whole thing about taxes. Taxes are me. Basically, that's me checking in. I'm paying taxes to the government to leave me the fuck alone. You know what I'm saying? I understand if I don't pay them, they're gonna come after me. So I'm giving Caesar his tribute.
My mic is off.
Hey,
let me show you something real quick. Give me 1 second. This is called humanity. Like, this is my neighbor, right? He just walked up to me and said, "Hey, give me your phone number." He said, "Because I don't see you guys. Don't see you for a few days or a week or so. When we be worried," he said, "I started calling the police to check up on you." That's what we call humanity. This is what we call neighborly. This is what we want. We don't want the division.
Wait. But I don't want division. I don't want to condemn a person because of their last name or defend or condemn a person because I think that they're, the things that, a lot of things that I've seen. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, I have a responsibility to everybody. I've said this on the show and I'm gonna keep saying it. Look, I don't care if you're a Nazi. I don't care if you're KKK. I don't care if you're whatever. If you're a human being, I want you to eat. I want you to have shelter. I want you to have employment. I want you to have dignity. I want everybody to have that. I believe that's a responsibility that everybody gets. You don't have to agree with the way that I think for me to give a damn about you. I don't need you to give a damn about me. I still give a damn about you. So I'm saying that it's never about sacrificing humanity, but I'm just saying that the point that I was making about paying tribute to Caesar, the bottom line is I depend on me for my own personal family and all of this stuff like that. It will be gravy if I get something back from the government. And that's why when me and Afro-agnostics talk about how the government has a responsibility to us because we are funding the government, you know what I'm saying? It's a righteous position to hold them accountable. But I'm just saying it blows my mind that you seem to be talking about accountability, but when we talk about them doing things that would actually benefit Black communities, you just seem kind of like, well, hey, we just need to take care of that for ourselves. And I'm not saying you.
No. I ain't never said that.
I never said that. I suggested that.
No. If you follow my text and you follow me on Facebook, I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to get back the whole land. So say it again, sir.
I was talking about Student X. I was
like I said, you can't.
And I was also saying because I was also saying Student X that if I misperceive it, I misperceive it. So again, this is no condemnation of you.
Yeah, but look, so let me clear it up real quick. Is that my vantage point, my POV, my philosophy, if you will, is that first and foremost is all about accountability. And absolutely that in regards to no matter what the circumstances we face, we need to strategize and come up with, plans, and deploy them that's designed to overcome the obstacles. You know what I mean? Now, that doesn't say that, we shouldn't hold, those responsible, and accountable for giving, to, the people what is deserving of the people. You know what I mean? That doesn't negate that at all. You know what I mean? So we shouldn't misconstrue the two. Absolutely. What I am saying is that in this Trump administration, as it relates to going over this, the government, spending and contracts and whatnot, I've been saying for a long time that the masses of the American people, our coffers have been getting raped. And monies have been being stolen, from others, at our expense, and it is in the masses, regardless of creed, color, class, orientations. It's in the best interest of us all to now understand what that is, and then like any household would do, if you're trying to raise up and become stronger, is you want to pay off and get rid of your debt, and just have a more manageable amount of debt that you're dealing with, and then you want to be able to reinvest, and grow, which our greatest resource in this country is not the oil, is not, the wonderful buildings, the vacation spots, the beautiful edifices are the people themselves. The people is what need to be invested into. You know what I mean? Exactly. And absolutely, we all should get our fair share, regardless, again, of what we look like. That's what I stand on.
But you want them to save this money that's not going to make its way back to us.
What do you mean is that going to come back to us? Well, why wouldn't it come back to us? You know what I mean? Right the back, they're talking about, what the savings of Doge, giving a check to return back, to the people.
They're not giving no check. When they asked Elon about, hey, how's that check coming? It's like, yeah, you're probably not going to get a check. You're just going to check on.
I mean, we'll see. I mean,
your benefit is going to be the fact that this government runs more smoothly, but your tax number might still be your tax number.
Bro, we will see. We will see one way or another.
It's hard to say you're stealing from me when basically I'm paying you a shakedown. If my shakedown is X, what you do with it is what you do with it. You know what I'm saying?
We'll see, because they're publishing the numbers, but either he's going to be right one way or the other. Either A, he's going to be right that Trump is in this mindset to where, he wants to be, a tool of the Most High, and help humanity. You know what I mean? I hear him say that. I don't necessarily believe that, you know what I mean? But either he's going to be that, or he's going to end up making decisions that ultimately play into what it needs to happen in order for a change to take place.
So he's going to help the Most High no matter how it goes. No matter how it goes, it's going to help.
You
We
see what
as
I'm
the
saying? You
people
know what
got
I
to
mean?
see it.
So we about to see. But the thing is that I think the way it's going to work out is that Trump and his buddies, I think they're all going to win. But I think ultimately the masses of the people are going to take a hit. And then at the very least now, we'll have the final barrier complete, which is black people, who are very disappointed in Obama's representation. And then for the whites that believe that Trump was going to be the savior. If he ends up to be another crook, at the end of the day, then they're going to know. And then what's holding this whole change back is for the masses of the people to recognize that we all have a common foe, a common enemy that is not looking out for the best interests of the
And this
people
the
at
reason why
all.
he would be
And
the,
that change, needs to take place, and it'll come through our unity. You know what I mean?
and
Instead
this
of
is the reason
everyone
why he
breaking
would
off
be
in
the
their
last
own
president.
little sects and their own little gangs and whatnot. You know what I mean? It'll be a more global, universal type of movement. That change. The one that kind of reminds me of a throwback. You appreciate this nice. From pop culture, that show V. You know what I mean? The mini series, as well as the movie. When they had the aliens that came in, they had the lizards, they had the human beings and whatnot. You know what I mean? Ultimately, there was
Remember
a
that?
multi-diverse, unit of people that realized that look, these guys ain't what they say they are. You know what I mean? And we know it's true. The masses of people don't. We need to go ahead and organize against them and bring them down. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately, I think that would take place if Trump is not what he say he is. That's going to take place. And then, then the question becomes, do they deploy, their ultimate plan, which is to go into the holes in the grounds they've dug and just, nuke this whole damn thing and start all over. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? But one way or another, I think we're going to find out, during this administration.
One thing I
agree,
forgot to
brother
do. Wait, brother. You said before you go, there's one thing that I forgot to do on the Focus Up show because brother Afro Agnostics, wasn't on there, but he did give me something. So we can get an Afro Agnostic take on the whole liberation thing. So he says, Trump's Liberation Day speech started by painting the U.S. as a victim. Even though the U.S. has invaded and politically intervened countries, imposed sanctions, and forced economic deals on others, yet U.S. is the victim. Conservative hated when marginalized and oppressed people talk about being exploited, though. Then he blamed those same countries for what big corporations did, moving jobs overseas for cheap labor and pushing for trade deals and bringing those cheap goods back in. So now Trump and MAGA use reciprocal tariffs to punish poor countries and working class people, all based on a twisted view of the trade deficit. It's wild how backwards MAGA thinking is. 13% wake up. So, that is brother Afro Agnostic's take on that. And I agree with a lot of that.
Yeah. Again.
Also, and before you do that, Student X, I should have brought up our graphic here. So this is the beginning of the Phantom Menace. It says turmoils engulf the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. We see some type of similarity going on with what's going on.
Ask brother Oscar Sinoskit, how you was his brother's name. No disrespect to him. Ask him how he been looking into Chad, Mali, Ghana, and other Western African nations. How they doing being independent from the European colonizers?
So he already gave that to me. He already gave that to me. So I'm saying that he'll have to respond in the comments after the show. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah. So by them getting out of the mindset of European control will allow people with the technology and an understanding and the evolvement of human beings. They know what to do for self. Now Ghana didn't even produce tomatoes 2 or 3 years ago. Now they came up to number 3 in the world producing not potatoes but tomatoes.
I hear you.
You now have machinery that can do the work for you. Look at brother Abraham Toure, who is leading the charge throughout African nations. Let's do for self. This is a good thing. European corporations is what keeping these peoples bounded. Destroy the corporations. You want to keep the whole thing, keep going the way it is. It's insane. Brother Afro. It's insane. Freedom at any cost.
No. He's the advocate of that. He always talks about that. Again, he
got it mixed up then. He's confused about what freedom is and how you obtain it.
I don't think he's
You know,
even
I
a little
tell you
bit
what business was usual. These people, listen, I've been to Africa. He might call himself Africa. I have land in Africa. I've been there. I've seen the psychological games that the United States play. You know what news they listen to in Africa? CNN.
Yeah.
You know
So
what they go?
again, you're preaching to the choir. I think all four of us agree that deciding for self, and your self control and self determination, knowledge of self, all of that stuff is going to put you
Got
in
to
a
break the
position
chain.
to best go forward. No, none of us are doing that. I'm the one that has argued that. But I'd rather take a scalpel to the machine as opposed to destroy it down when the machine is as big as the United States of America. I generally do
The
agree.
scalpel only gonna last 4 years.
I generally
You got 4
agree
years with a
and
scalpel.
not
Give me a hammer.
I generally agree in not putting new cloth into old cloth. I generally agree with that. But in these type of situations, again, there are things that we all agree on. Those are the things that we need to come together on. We shouldn't be butting heads on the things that we disagree about. The things that we disagree about, we work on by ourselves. But the stuff that we mutually agree with, that's where we can pull our resources and work together. We don't have to agree on everything. You know what I'm saying? And to me, this is a much more productive way for humanity to function. So that's fundamentally the position that I'm taking. And that position is separate from Afro-agnostics, who's maybe more of your situation of just tear it all down and start it all over.
That's what Afro want. He should be a fan, brother.
Let me say this real quick,
brother. He doesn't. He's not a fan of that guy's concept of tearing it down and that guy's building it back up. Just because you have a mutual objective, you also have to have mutual strategy and mutual implementation. But go ahead, brother Youssef.
Let me share something with you with a Chinese guy. I was up at his house up here in Colorado Hills. It's a very rich area, right? He has a big mansion up there. So we sit up to talk, and he could oversee a lot of things. And one thing, he pulled me aside. You know, he loved my strength and my understanding of finances and global conflict. He pulled me aside. He says, "We up here where he's at, even though this is a government, the state is a democratic state, but this area is known as a republic. We all vote Republican." He said the reason why we do that because the Democratic Party has created a cesspool of ignorance, drug abuse, and things of that nature. He said us up here on the top, which is the Republicans, profit off of that. Profit. Only thing is missing in this cesspool is the proper education. Who want to keep our community unlearned? It ain't the Republicans, because they're telling you, here go a voucher for you and your son and your daughter to take them to another school system that's going to give them a better education. It is Democrats and all, they don't need it. Because they profit off of it as well.
Department of Education, who's basically trying to take away grants and stuff like that. Yeah, I disagree with that.
He's giving it back to the states because listen what you just said, bro. Listen to what you just said. We just said we are number one. Last in education. We've been financing through the federal system. The federal system is the one to give you your curriculum and give you everything damn you need, right, for finance. So if you turn it back over to the states, guess what you get a chance to do? You get to vote on the curriculums now. You get to get.
We have way more influence for sure.
You got more influence this way.
But less
this
resources.
This is the way you get control.
But less resources.
Back. Huh?
You saying control? You said, but it's less resources.
Okay, so yes, your resources come from your state. That means the states now got to be. Hold on, wait a minute, brother Charles. Wait a minute, brother Charles. Wait a minute. You give it back to the states. Now they got to control their budget. Now there's no more theft. That way, you ain't no good government if we got a whole bunch of failure. Now they got to have accountability.
That's not going to matter.
Now they got to have accountability. So this is what's going to happen. Now the states got to be audited. Just like the federal government was audited. Now we're going to see the theft in the states. Because you ain't got no more dependence.
I like that. I like that you said now we're going to see the theft in the states. Exactly.
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 24 billion was stolen out of the funding for the homeless by Gavin Newsom. How can you steal 24 billion? Don't know where it's at, my brother.
If it was stolen, the responsibility of that is you don't know where it's at. So that I don't need to describe it as stolen, but I can describe it as unaccounted for, and that's unacceptable. But
it's unacceptable. So now what we need, bro?
Go ahead.
We need accountability, correct?
I do.
How do you give accountability?
We need
You take
accountability,
the titty,
and
you
Democrats
take the
have
baby off the titty,
stuff.
you take the baby off the titty, and let it be accountable for itself. Now, see how you gonna act.
But you wait. You take you have to wait. You can't just take the baby off the titty and just not let it have nothing. I'm just saying that there's a.
It's been happening. It's been happening. It's so spoiled. He want to suck the titty for 7, 8, 9 years. It's been happening.
No, yeah. Like I said, there's a time when it's move on.
So real quick, I think we need to address. Big Cuz has been having a lot of different comments coming up there, and then and they've been related to putting faith in no man, and whatnot, and things of this nature. I just want to say that, again, a lot of times when we get into religion, we have some people who are a little bit more spooky with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Meaning like for example, God or Jesus is not gonna come and take the wheel, as we like to say on this show sometimes, directly. You're not gonna see a physical element or this individual, physically now president of the United States. You know what I mean? But what you will see is the will of God coming through an individual, because anytime we get a blessing, let me make it real plain, to my brother Big Cuz, is anytime you get a blessing, it's never came to where Jesus himself or God himself came to you and delivered it, to you. It's always come through the vessel of another person. You know what I mean? Yep. And that's how it's going to always be. So the question is that is Trump, doing the will of God, directly, and he's accepted the mission? He's like the guy, the king in Nineveh back in the day, who had the option to avoid destruction of his land, and he heeded the call, and his nation was spared. Or is he going to be like those of Sodom and Gomorrah? You know what I mean? Like the Democrats.
All examples. All examples, man.
Some situations only to have the city destroyed by fire. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we'll see. We'll see. And my faith is not in anything, or anybody. I'm just going to see how the situation play out. I'm going to prepare for the worst, and I'm going to pray for the best. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm
going to get down. You know what I mean? And I would, strongly recommend that strategy to others as well.
Yes, sir. Preparation.
I'm not supporting the Democrats or the Republicans. I think making the Democrats the boogeyman is kind of weak sauce.
I mean, they're all the boogeyman. You want to get technical.
The reality is that
that's not what they say, though, Brother John.
These conditions existed way before Democrats. You know what I'm saying? So it's just if you want to say, look. Yeah, so I'm just saying that you can make the argument that Democrats are not the solution. I think there's a lot of argument for that. But to say that they're the cause, I think that's kind of not being honest.
I mean, I don't know how you heard
that. And you guys are giving the Republicans way too much credit. You know what I'm saying? I think both of them.
I'm not giving no one credit. That's not where you're not paying attention. You know what I mean? I'm not giving anyone credit at all. I'm saying that they're. Say again?
I said I'll play the tape. I'll play the tape and come back.
Yeah, no. You never see these are things. Hold on, Brother Charles. Let me interject quick. You have never heard me call myself a MAGA. You never even really hear me mention that word. You never heard me say I'm a Republican. You never heard me say I was. You never heard me say I was a Republican. What you did hear me say.
I never heard Mutant say that about himself either. I've never heard him say that about himself.
So when you make that a generalized statement that, we defend the Republicans, no, we defending what Trump is doing and understanding his movement. Do we agree with it all? Do we agree with it all?
I'm not even necessarily defending that, but I'm
No, listen to me for a minute. Listen to me for a minute. Do we agree with it all? No. But it's a part of the script? Yes. That's why you end up with the two options, because you can see the pathway.
Strange
you can see the pathway.
Strange bedfellows. I support that.
And that's what it is with me personally. I see the pathway.
That's what it is with all of us, because ain't none of us rocking with the candidates or any of that stuff like that. None of us. I mean, not even. Again, you talk about Afro-agnostics. Trust me, Afro-agnostics is probably more critical of Obama than either of you. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it is. So I'm just saying that that's the situation. But we're at a good time to kind of start wrapping it up. So why don't you guys give some closing I don't need nothing to say. I respect you guys. I appreciate you guys. I've heard some great points from both of you today. I've heard some stuff that I didn't rock with, but again, that's cool. I'm sure you ain't rock with everything I said either. But go ahead.
But the love is still there.
Well,
love is still there.
So
there.
I'm gonna close out with this, and then we'll let Brother Yusuf respond, because I'm respond. I've given Trump a grade of a D+ on foreign policy and a C+ on domestic policy, and the only thing that's saying on domestic policy is reserving what's going on taking place with Doge in particular. So I'm not totally happy, and then some of my criticism, I was going to share some of them, and then brother could address wherever he wants to address. But number one, we talked about it yesterday, is that I don't like how the gentleman that was swooped up in this immigrant roundup that was mistakenly sent to a very bad situation. We've all seen it on TV, a very bad situation, and for the Trump administration to admit that there's been they made a mistake but not doing anything to correct it, the optics on it is terrible, it's bad. I think it's a mistake by the campaign. I'm just gonna write them out, and then I'm gonna give you the floor, brother. You have the rest. I don't like the fact that if you go back to some of the grievances that me and the base have in regards to 9/11. I mean, we know there's a lot of misconception with 9/11, just as many, if not more, than what we saw during COVID, and is not being addressed. These chemtrails, many of us, we understand the geoengineering, the whole 9 yards, I haven't heard a peep on them with that. There's war with Iran, that's brewing, and how the Houthis, a poor nation where over 50% of the kills so far have been women and children, they're being bombed with no really strategic military objective. They know they're not hitting anything. They know they're not influencing anything. And the fact that Houthis are the only ones who are out there trying to stop this genocide from Israel, I don't know why, he's involved with that. We were promised arrest the whole first term, that he was in president. Now, granted, he got interrupted, but are we going to see some arrests, this time around? We're seeing people who are vulnerable, like college students and those on visas, to where if they're taking a critical, a view of Israel and talking very negatively about Israel based on the treatment, other Palestinians and the genocide that's taking place there, they're being swooped up and thrown out of the country. Trump is surrounded by a bunch of sycophants, which are yes men and women. It seems like everyone around them, that's all that they are, and Zionists at the end of the day. I understand that Trump's safety has to be priority number one, but we still haven't even talked about the USS Liberty, when much of the base knows and understand that protecting Israel is not an American first agenda. Why are things so heavily, there? We talked a little about it before, about the art of war, deception, the whole 9 yards, but I'm just throwing these things out, and again, there are notable cabinet omissions, people that have once even been a part of his administration that should have been a part of it this time, like Colonel McGregor, that he is very well respected, a proponent of peace, and not looking for all this, America being involved, and being puppets, to others and whatnot, that I have a problem with. And lastly, this assassination attempt, bro, look, we still haven't got, he's in office now. You mean to tell me that if someone tried to kill you and you not making it really be made known what the hell was going on in this investigation? Where did it go? What happened? I said from the gate that I wasn't 100%, 1,000% sure that that wasn't staged, honestly. So, again, I have a lot of criticisms and whatnot, and the floor is yours, brother.
So that was a lot, bro. So I'm gonna have to get you to go backwards. But let's deal with the assassination situation and no information coming out. We have to look and see who he took security clearances from. Go back and look at all of those he took security clearance from. We know you cannot bring charges against somebody unless you have actual facts. So that calls investigations, right?
Yes, sir.
So he only been in for 3 months. You talking about a web. It's going to take teams to do this. It's not going to happen overnight because we want it to happen overnight. They're going to have all this money. They're going to have attorneys, firms representing them in their defense. So you're going to have to come strong. If it's treason, you're going to have to come strong. If it's corruption, you're going to have to come strong. That's cause investigations. A lot of stuff you can't bring out because it would destroy your case. That's law, right? Understanding that. Now let's understand. Huh?
I said, and it
Say it
could be
again.
lone gunman. I'm giving out a third option out there. It could be lone gunman too, but go ahead.
Yeah. So okay, and then you're looking at the first thing you said. What was that again, brother? Help me, because my mind be all over the place.
You don't what you mean? I was talking about 9/11 chemtrails. You know.
Okay. You said okay about 9/11.
Single fence. You know what I mean?
Really?
Okay. Slow down.
This just needs to be your close. This is just your closing statement. We're just gonna close out the show. So it's on you. You can close out the show whatever you want. This is not you. You're not being invested.
Okay. What I'm going to say is this: we got to be patient. It's only been 3 months. We got to be patient. It's been 3 months.
That's real.
Nobody lost their Social Security. I haven't heard nobody on my social media page said me took my Social Security. February, Black History Month is still there. Nobody got the EBT card, as they've been saying. None of these things have happened to people. They're just trying to get you riled up for a summer of chaos. That's how they put their people on the front line. There's nothing. Listen, just be patient, y'all. Look, study the chess move. Don't look at one side of the media. Be the referee. Look at both sides. Who's telling a lie? What's going on in the Middle East? What's going on with Russia and China? And allow God to put the pieces together for you so you have a clearer understanding. We are in no position to rush nothing. We just have an opportunity to see what's taking place and be able to analyze it and process it and form our own opinions. That's why I said Trump ain't doing this. This is my opinion, what I see based on the moves he's making. I'm a referee.
All right.
When you take that approach, you'll see it clearly. Go ahead.
So we'll see how this plays out. And you make some very interesting points, and it's really it's a way of seeing how it's going to play out. And I agree, it's 3 months in. And the thing about this stock stuff, this is just it can recover. This is
exactly
billionaires losing this type of money. This is an opportunity for them because basically now they can buy in cheap. So that having been said, hey, thank you guys for participating with Student X, with Brother Yusef, but myself, and we gonna block Brother Walk. Forget what he's talking about, but like, subscribe, share. Thank you, and appreciate everything. So that's what's up.
Yes, sir, brother.